These equations are called higher order equations because most equations we solve are with x to an exponent of 1, or an x squared equation, which is a quadratic equation we know. But here we're talking about equations where the exponent of x is larger than 2. Like our first example, we have x to the fourth minus 1 equals 0. These are a lot like quadratic equations. They involve factoring and solving for x. One thing to keep in mind is whatever your largest exponent is, that's how many answers you're going to get. So since our first problem starts with x to the fourth, that means we're going to get 4 separate answers for x. Looks just like a dots x squared minus 1, and it is a dots x to the fourth minus 1, and it factors to x squared plus 1 and x squared minus 1. I'm going to keep it equal to 0. And then I want to see if either of those can be factored. X squared plus 1 cannot be factored because it's not there's no GCF, it's not a trinomial, and it's not a dots because of the plus. But x squared minus 1, that is a dots. That can be factored to x plus 1, x minus 1 equal to 0. Then I want to set each of these equal to 0. X squared plus 1 equals 0, x plus 1 equals 0, x minus 1 equals 0, and solve for x. For the x squared plus 1 equals 0, I can, make it x squared equals negative 1 if I subtract 1 on both sides. And then doing the square root of that, I'm going to get x equals the square root of negative 1 plus or minus the square root of negative 1. So that actually gives me a couple of imaginary, but it's plus or minus, so those are two separate answers even though they're both imaginary. And we get x equals negative 1 here, x equals positive 1 here. Next looks just like a trinomial, and I'm going to solve it like a trinomial. Kind of pretend like it is a trinomial, x squared minus 5x plus 4. And so that's going to be, what multiplies to 4 and adds to negative 5. So let's see, that's minus 5 minus, oh no, not minus 5, minus 4. And minus 1. They multiply to positive 4 and add to a negative 5. Keep it set equal to 0. And these are both dots. So that's x plus 2 and x minus 2. X plus 1 and x minus 1 equals 0. I'm going to get x equals plus or minus 2 and x equals plus or minus 1 for a total of 4 answers. Let me just separate this a little. Last one, because it's 4 terms, I like to cut it in half and factor by group to start. So I'll do GCF of each half. Here I could take out a 2x, I'll be left with an x squared minus 4. Here I could take out a positive 3, I'm left with an x squared minus 4. Remember, when you're doing factor by grouping, your two quotients have to be the same. And so we get 2x plus 3, the two GCFs, and x squared minus 4. That's a dots we've seen a couple times already. And 2x plus 3 is not, so I'm just going to solve for it. For set equal to 0, 2x equals negative 3, x equals negative 3 over 2. And we get x equals negative 2, and x equals positive 2. And there are 3 answers because our problem, highest exponent, is x to the third.